of the Cabinet Scrutiny Committee on the 28th of July 2021. Just to make you all aware, today's meeting will be recorded. Can I also welcome any members of the public and press to today's meeting? Can I kindly ask you to observe the meeting only and not speak or participate? Can I please remind you all to switch your phones to silent for the duration of the meeting? In addition, can I refer you to the protocol of remote meetings which have been previously circulated? Namely, your microphone should be switched to mute unless you are speaking. Should you wish to ask a question or make a comment, can you please indicate either via the chat function or by raising your electronic hand via Teams. I will assume that you have all read the paperwork before us today prior to the meeting. Please only use the chat function to indicate if you wish to speak as an alternative to the electronic hand function or to raise any technical issues. When asking a question, can you please indicate which page number you are referring to? Okay, the first item on the agenda on the Cabinet Scrutiny paper is to do a roll call. I am Councillor Saifur Rahman, the chair, and I am present. I'm going to hand you over to Charlotte now, Democratic Service Officer to the roll call. Over to you, Charlotte, please.
Thanks, Chair. I've marked you as present. So if I go to Councillor Sharon Freegard.
Present, Charlotte.
Wyndham Griffiths.
At the moment, present, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Nigel Hunt.
Oh.
Councillor Hunt, are you
Yeah,
there?
present. Sorry, it was muted. Present.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Steve Hunt.
I'm here, Charlotte.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis Keogh.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Simon Noyle.
I'm here, Charlotte, thanks.
Councillor Alan Llewellyn.
Hello, Charlotte, present, thanks.
Councillor Sandra Miller.
Present, Charlotte.
I've had apologies from Councillor Rydian Maisen. Councillor
Charlotte, sorry, I'm here now. I couldn't make it at the end of the day. So
thank you. Councillor Suzanne Paddison.
Present.
Councillor Lynette Purcell.
Present.
Councillor Sheila Penry.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Sonia Reynolds.
Present, Charlotte.
Rachel Taylor.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Arwen Wilcock.
Present, Chair.
Then if I move to Cabinet members, Councillor Edward Latham.
Yeah, present, Chair.
Councillor Leanne Jones.
Apologies, Char.
Thank you. Carol Clement Williams.
Yeah, I'm here.
Councillor Mike Harvey.
Yeah, present, Charlotte.
Councillor Doreen Jones.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Alan Lockyer.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Peter Rees.
present, Charlotte.
Peter Richards.
Present, Charlotte.
Grave.
Present, Charlotte.
And officers, Karen Jones.
Present.
Howell Jenkins.
Present. Present, sorry.
Sorry. Andrew Thomas.
Present, Charlotte.
Andrew Jarrett.
Yeah, I'm present, Charlotte.
Nicola Pierce. I think Dave Griffiths is standing in on behalf of Nicola, is that right?
Yes, yes, Charlotte.
There we are, thank you. Apologies. Craig Griffiths.
Present, Charlotte.
Simon Brennan.
Present.
I've marked Dave Griffiths as in. Jane Woodman Ralph.
Present.
Mike Shaw. Is Mike there?
He is here, Char. I can see him. He is here. He's listed.
Okay, thank you. And have I missed anyone at all?
Charlotte, my apologies. I was on mute. Mike
Oh,
Shaw.
sorry. There we are, Chair. I think that's everyone then.
Charlotte, I'm sorry I joined late. David Griffiths.
Oh, I've marked you as present.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Charlotte. Moving on to item number 2, Chair's announcement. We have chosen to scrutinize item 6 and item 9 on the Cabinet agenda, We have also we also have 3 urgent items. We have chosen to scrutinize item 12 and 13 of the urgent items. There are also 4 items on the Cabinet's Finance Subcommittee agenda. However, we have chosen not to scrutinize these items as we are happy with the recommendation contained within the report. Just for those members who weren't at the pre-briefing, are you happy with these items, or are there any items that you wish to add that you weren't able to?
Perfectly happy, thank you, Chair.
Okay,
Chair.
thank you very much. Okay, can I call in Howell to give us an update on item 7 of the paper, as there is an update on the report? Is it Howell?
Yes, Chair. In terms of the item, I think unfortunately the reason for the decision and the implementation of the decision had been excluded, so apologies for that. The reasons is to try and ensure that we have got compliance with the Constitution and the budget is updated, and the implementation will be after the 3-day call-in. So apologies, Chair, for that.
Thank you for that, Howell. Okay, item number 3 on the Cabinet Scrutiny agenda is a declaration of interest. I like to declare a prejudicial interest on one of the urgent item number 12, which is the free town centre car parking. My family has a business in Station Road, so I'll be handing over to the Vice Chair, Sharon Freegard, who will be chairing this meeting, and I'll be leaving for that item. Are there any other declaration of interest? Sharon, Vice Chair, please. Sharon, can you hear me?
Hello,
Yes,
Saif.
sorry. No questions. No. Nothing to
Okay,
declare.
Nigel.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you, Saif. I'd like to declare an interest on the same item. I've got a store in the Aberafan Shopping Centre, so I'd like to declare a prejudicial interest.
Thank you, Nigel. Anybody else wish to declare an interest or any items?
Chair.
Yes, who's this?
Can
Sorry.
Item 11, urgent item, third sector grants. Can I declare at this stage I'm a member of the Care and Repair Board, West Glamorgan?
Chair.
Councillor Richard, we're not scrutinising that particular item. However, if you do wish to scrutinise this, however, when it gets to Cabinet meeting later on, you may wish to seek advice from legal and declare that interest. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Minutes of previous meetings. Can we please have a proposer and a second for the approval of both minutes that were held on the 12th of May this year and 2nd of June this year? Can I get a proposer and a seconder, please?
Move, Chair.
Okay.
Second that, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. So if we now move on to the Cabinet agenda, pre-decision scrutiny, item number 6, which is the budget monitoring update report for 2021 to 2022. These are on pages 21 to pages 32. Before I ask members for questions, Mr. Jenkin or Mr. Jones, is there anything you wish to add to the report, or shall I go straight to questions?
Thank you, Chair. Just like to reiterate that we're very early on in the 21-22 financial year. This is a budget monitoring update position calculated as at the end of May, projected to the end of March next year. You'll have seen on page 21 that at the moment the net underspend in terms of the report shows at £178,000. There are some variations reflected in the reports, along with a number of assumptions that the Welsh Government will continue to provide monies from the Local Authority Hardship Fund to support both increased costs and loss of income, but we are still waiting for clarification on some of those as we go through the year. And the proposal is that we will be providing an update bi-monthly to members as we did last year due to the ongoing COVID position. So I'm happy to take questions, but that's the background and the position and why we are highlighting this report for members' consideration today, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Can I call first, please, Lynette Purcell?
Thank you. Right, my questions, I think it might be the Director of Social Services might be best to answer, but we'll see. On page 22 and 23, it's talking about children's residential care, and it's talking about the increased number of children having to go into residential care. I just wondered if this was a direct or indirect result of lockdown pressures on vulnerable families. But at the same time, I would want to stress that I'm sure we would all agree that if children must be put into care, then they must if there's an assessed need. The second question is also probably best addressed to the Director, but it is worrying. On page 24, the last sentence says, when talking about Welsh Government funding, it is understood that from September, there may be a reduction in the amount of financial support, and this may impact on the viability of some care settings and providers. So I think across the board, we ought to be concerned about this. And I just wondered if the Director could expand on this a little bit and tell us what the consequences would be to the Social Services Department and to the Council more widely if this does indeed turn out to be the case. Thanks.
Thank you, Lynette. Mr. Jarrett?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you for those questions, Councillor Purcell. Appreciate it. In respect of residential care for children and young people, we are seeing a significant increase in mental health issues amongst young people as a result of the lockdown pressures. We're also seeing an increase in the number of families who are in significant distress as a result of being confined together for long periods. I think alongside this, there was a protracted period where we weren't able to provide our own intensive support packages to families within their homes because of COVID-19 and the safety issues around doing so. And the normal outlets that some families had to reduce stresses, such as children going to school, etc., weren't available either. I think as a result of that, we are seeing increased pressures across our looked after children sector. And in particular the residential care, so that the more critical end of that sector. And we are predicting that we'll need 3 or more extra placements this year, I'm afraid, as a result of that. But just to reassure you, Councillor Purcell and the Scrutiny Committee, you know, where children need to be taken into care, we will do so. Where they need to have those needs met within residential care, we will need to do so. We will do so. But where we can step those children down, we will also do that so that they can go back to live with families as soon as possible. That's the answer to the first question. Chair, you happy for me to move on to the second question?
Yes, please.
Okay, so this was about residential care homes. Committee may well know that Welsh Government have been providing financial support to residential care homes, giving them up to 90% occupancy. So anything where they haven't got up to 90% occupancy, Welsh Government have been supporting them financially up to that level. And they're talking about in September about reducing that. With some caveats. We don't know the detail, but what the report highlights is that if the reduction in financial support by Welsh Government is not handled carefully, then we will predict a significant number of care homes may be left in an unviable position financially. This means that some care homes may need to close down, leaving us with fewer care homes that we will need in the future. Depending on what happens then, we as a council may need to step in to support those residential care homes or that sector financially ourselves. But what I can say to Councillor Purcell is that there is a detailed report coming to the Health and Social Care Committee, and that will detail some of the predictions that we're making in private. And so she will get an opportunity to see that in detail.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Lynette, you happy with that response? Thank you. Sonia, please, next.
Chair, do you mind, could I come in on that very point, please? It's Carol.
I'm sorry, who's this?
Carol. Cabinet
Yes.
member.
Oh, yes. Sorry, Carol.
Just to let the scrutiny committee know that it is something that I flagged up in the finance subgroup meeting with Rebecca last Thursday, and I have specifically mentioned the issue about care homes. So it is on her radar, and if I have any further information, I will share that with Andrew, but I'm sure he will find out anyway. Okay, but it is on our radar, and it is something that we are working on. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Cabinet Member, for this information. Sonia, please, next.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to ask on page 24 as well, and it is almost certainly for Andrew, the underspends in community care management and community care, other community care and direct payments. I wondered, how or whether there's any relationship between those and possible delays in assessments for those needing care. I am aware of some in my own community who are struggling to get care packages in place, and I just wondered if there was a related issues due to COVID and delays due to that.
Chair,
thank you, Sonia.
Yes, Chair, I can confirm that Councillor Reynolds is absolutely right. So we're having real difficulties at the moment recruiting to domiciliary care, and even providing direct payments at the moment because of the impact of COVID. Domiciliary care isn't I think it's been under the caution, the spotlight for a long period of time. It's a really difficult role, and we've had a number of domiciliary care workers who've contracted COVID and been very ill, and it's just not a job that people want to go into at the moment, especially when the hospitality sector is opening back up. So we are struggling in that area. We're not unique in Neath Talbot. It is happening across Wales and England. But it is something we will need to look at nationally, I think, about the pay that we give our domiciliary care workers who do such a valuable and important job for us. So absolutely, those underspends are as a direct result of COVID and the responses that we've made to COVID, and of course the fact that everyone is really tired at the moment, and those jobs, where you're directly caring for people, are particularly difficult jobs.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jarrett. Next on my list is Nigel Hunt.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got a question for Howard really about Appendix 4 with the general reserve balance. Would it be possible going forward in these bi-monthly reports if we could have the balance from previous years, even at that point? So say now we're in July, maybe if we have it in September, at where the balance was in 2020 or 2019. Would that be possible? Thank you.
Howell?
In 2019-20 and previous years, we used to do quarterly reports. I don't think that any budget monitoring report to do with the previous year is of any benefit in terms of where it is, because there are so many different impacts in the year. There is no real benefit in actually trying to say, well, this time last year we were at this much underspend or that much overspend. It doesn't really provide any meaningful information, and I'll have to spend so much time trying to explain what the variation is because of that than what the current year's budget monitoring report is currently saying. And it is only the current year that is of any real value in terms of the way the council's activities and any support that we get from the Welsh Government actually is of any real meaning. So I think that that's not of value, and it'll cause more challenges and more issues than what it is worth at this point in time, Chair.
Okay. Nigel, do you want to come back?
No, I mean, I'll take Howard's word on it, but I thought we might be able to monitor because the general reserves went up last year, right? So in 2021, in April 2021, we had more in general reserves than we did in 2020. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
understand what you're saying, Howard. Yeah.
Yeah, I accept that, Chair, and I understand Councillor Hunt's question, but I think that most of that came in right in the last month of the year, as I mentioned last year. That has not happened to that extent in previous years, and it will be skewed in any future way forward. So I think this is the best way of managing it this year and in future years.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you for that, Howell. Are there any other members have any questions or observation on this item number 6? If not, can I need a proposer and a second to approve this report to go to cabinet.
I
please.
move, Chair.
I second, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next item on my list that we've decided to scrutinize at pre-briefing is item number 9, Treasury Management Monitoring Report. Again, Mr. Jenkins, Mr. Jones, anything you wish to add, or shall I go straight to questions?
Happy to take questions, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Councillor Arwen Woolcock, please, on this item.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As I said in pre-briefing, I appreciate that this is a report for 2021-22. However, in paragraph 4 on page 63, it does mention there about the Bank of England's Monetary Policy Committee on the 10th of March. And it goes on to say, the final sentence there, the bank warned that the pandemic will result in, quote, sharp and large economic shock. It was reported in The Guardian on the 21st of July, Chair, that the Chancellor Rishi Sunak is proposing cuts to public spending of between 14 and 17 billion pounds every year from 2022. And I just wondered what measures does the Council have planned for such drastic cuts? Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Jenkins?
Chair, thank you for the question. I think what I've got to say at the moment is that there's lots of speculation going across the financial markets as to how the UK government is going to balance its forward-looking budgets post-COVID. At the moment, they are working on a comprehensive spending review, which is due to be announced, I believe, in November. They haven't confirmed a date, and I would hope that it is a multi-year comprehensive spending review, but it's uncertain as to whether that is the case at this point. There are lots of different messages coming out of the government. And until some of those play themselves through that particular spending review and the Chancellor's budget statements that are again due in November and probably next March as well, we won't be able to have any real certainty about how much money is being invested in public spending. Now, there is work that has been done by Wales Fiscal Analysis. There is work that is being done by the Institute of Fiscal Studies in England. The Welsh analysis seems to suggest that the public funds for Wales could increase by 0.9%, I understand, next year, or potentially up to 2.9%. For future years. Now, that will be quite a challenge if that's what actually happens. And of course, we don't know how long COVID is going to be with us and the impacts of COVID to try and manage our overall finances. But in terms of the arrangements, we are looking to develop a forward financial plan to come in front of members in the autumn with a seminar probably towards the end of September to give you an indication of what those assumptions that we are building in for 22-23 onwards. And I'm sure that will be continuously updated over the autumn months going into the new calendar year 22 before the budget is finalised come March 2022. So I haven't got a crystal ball to answer all of that issues, but I think that there's work ongoing to try and estimate what that could look like and what we need to think about building into our plans, Chair.
Okay, thank you all. Arwin, are you happy with the response?
Yeah, that's fine,
Any-
Chair. I do appreciate that the situation is very fluid and it's very much finger in the air stuff. But I think we do need to take cognizance of these reports coming out and just get ready and prepare for them. And I'm grateful for Mr. Jenkins's reply. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. This report is for information, for noting. Right, okay, so can I now take you back to the Cabinet Scrutiny agenda? And we are now on item 6, which is the forward work program. This is for noting. Any comments, observation on this item? Charlotte, is there anything you wish to add, or are you okay for
No,
me to
Chair,
progress?
it's just there for noting. If there's anything particular that members want to include in the forward work programme, they can always email me outside the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Charlotte. The next item is urgent items. There are 3 urgent items today. We have chosen to scrutinize item 12 and 13. So before I go on to item 12, which is one of the urgent public item, I'm going to have to hand over to the Vice Chair, Sharon Freegat, as I've declared a prejudicial interest on this item. Vice Chair, would you like to take up the position now as Chair?
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Councillor Rahman.
Thank you.
Chair, can I come in as well?
Yes.
Before,
Charlotte.
I know Councillor Hunt has an interest on this point as well. So if he just wants to reaffirm his interest and leave the meeting, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you, Charlotte.
Yeah, I'd like to reaffirm my interest. I'm going to leave the meeting right now.
Can you let me know when they've gone, Charlotte?
Yes, let me just double check.
They have gone, Charlotte. I've just checked.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they've gone. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Item 12 is the proposal to provide free town centre car parking for the month of August 2021. So have officers got any update on this or anything they'd like to say before I go to questions?
No, nothing further to say at this stage, Chair. We could go straight to questions.
Okay, thank you, David. Okay, if I could call on Councillor Llewellyn, please.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair. Diolch, and I support the proposal as we need to explore all means of supporting local businesses through this difficult period. Could I ask for confirmation of how the fees would be funded, out of which reserves or transfers? And then the second question that I think have been circulated to officers previously, will we have a way of monitoring the impact on the use of car parks during this period and any feedback from businesses? I think there also needs to be further consideration of how town parking can be made more affordable on a sustainable basis. We hear these days a lot of talk of levelling up. Well, we need to level up between town centres and out of town supermarkets and shopping centres where parking is free. And we need that level playing field for local businesses, very often small, locally owned businesses in our town centres. One of the problems, of course, is that parking fees have become part of every council's income stream, and the funds will need to be replaced in some way. And a few years ago, the Welsh Government agreed to a pilot project on free town centre parking. It was part of a budget agreement between Labour and Plaid Cymru at that time, in what was then the Welsh Assembly. Now, do we have information on the outcome of the pilot and the prospects of it being rolled out more consistently. And finally, the report refers to the free bus scheme in Swansea. I hope that we can obtain information on the outcome of the scheme. I must say that I'm disappointed there wasn't coordination on a possible joint scheme in advance, as we're all part of the same city region, and greater use of public transport could benefit towns, valleys and tourist destinations across the whole of the region this summer and in future years. So I would hope that the leaders of the two council can communicate to look at the potential of these schemes for the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Is Howell going to answer the questions?
Thank you, Chair. If I could,
David.
if I can answer those sets of questions, and thank you, Councillor Llewellyn. They're a wide-ranging set of questions, and I'll do my best to cover them off. In terms of where the fees would be reimbursed from, that would come from the council's existing budget or indeed the reserve. In terms of monitoring, we'll need to compare almost pre-COVID data and this year's data for the first quarter. We monitor monthly the income that's received from each of our car parks right across the county. So what I would suggest is that perhaps after the Christmas period and into the new year, that I bring a report back that can show some trends around how the scheme actually performed in terms of its income. What we can't do is carry out surveys on the ground. That would be a huge resource in terms of surveys. And of course, we've only got baseline data of income taken at the moment, which is down anyway. So I wouldn't suggest that we put bodies on the ground monitoring them for the opening hours of the car parks. And of course, we don't have an electronic data management system. So I think the best way for us to evidence it in terms of monitoring is by these comparisons of monthly incomes. In terms of the Welsh Government report that you referred to, where there was the free parking initiative, I recollect that that was introduced as a result of Plaid Cymru having a discussion with the then former Minister Carl Sargent, where the initiative was introduced. Now, not all authorities participated in that. We obviously had some experience of what offers we had introduced, and of course that was at the time linked with what was the then Neath Business Improvement District. And they introduced footfall counters and had dialogue with the businesses to see how those initiatives worked, and we had some initial feedback from that. And of course, historically, we've always done free Christmas parking over the years. Now, pre-pandemic, and this is not current data, but we had some evidence from the Aberavon shopping centre manager, which sort of indicated around 11% increase in footfall at that time. Now, it was Christmas, and you know, this is almost a perfect storm in terms of analysing the data, because people may have been going into the town centres for Christmas shopping anyway at the time. So it's very difficult for us to make a clear statement around what factual difference it's made to the high street and prosperity. Also, there were, but notwithstanding me not having access to the Welsh Government report from that previous administration, you will recall that there was the Portus Review, and from that a number of studies were undertaken about rethinking of parking on the high street. Obviously our town centres have suffered pre-pandemic, and even more so now, as a result of the pandemic. So it's important for me to highlight that it's not just about the parking income, and there are several other issues which our renew and recover agenda will pick up going forward as part of the town centre recovery. So it's not just about parking, as I say, it's about business rates, it's about the retail offer, it's about sort of the sort of community atmosphere in the town centres. It's about crime and disorder. It's about all sorts of things that affect how a town centre will perform. Now, obviously, car parking is a key aspect of that and is very much at the forefront of that. But the actual the rethinking agenda still struggled with it in terms of anecdotal evidence, really, around recovery. So I think there's a lot more still to be done around that subject matter, really. But you are right to highlight, people are getting attracted to out-of-town shopping centres where they are able to have free parking. And that is challenging for the high street, plus all the online shopping now that's come online as well. So we think that this initiative, we hope will help aid the recovery of the town centres. It is only a short period. As I say, I'll bring a monitoring report back. And we'll need to perhaps assess that going forward, because it's a little bit of an unknown on how the town centres will recover. Turning to your point on the bus scheme, although we work very closely regionally with our colleagues across the bus sector, was unfortunate because it did come as a surprise to us as well that they were actually proposing the free travel at the weekends on Friday, Saturday, Sunday and Mondays. Now, I'm sure we can, obviously it's a City and County of Swansea scheme, so we're not able to monitor it per se, but we will be asking perhaps unofficially whether they can share the concessionary or the impacts on footfalls on those services. And interestingly, Welsh Government and Transport for Wales have picked up the press statements, and they indeed have asked the interest of Swansea to see how that scheme actually works going forward. So there's been a commitment that that the City and County of Swansea will share that information through ATCO. So that's the Association of Transport Coordinating Officers. So we should have access to the success or otherwise of that scheme. I think it's also important to note that our communities, as you know, and the members here and more widely will know, that we struggle with having bus services across our communities. So even having people travel on bus services, you've got to have them in the first place, and they're pretty thin on the ground in some of our areas. So I think that's another factor to be borne in mind when we consider those. Obviously, there's the wider review that's taking place, and we hope to improve the situation. So I hope I've covered most of the points. If not, if you could come back. But thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, David. All right, Alan?
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. Thanks to David for the very comprehensive reply. Yes, obviously there's a lot to, I think a lot to think about, and the more that we can learn from these exercises, the better informed we'll be for the future. One of the points I was making about, trying to monitor the impact on so the effect of additional months free parking on, I realise it's difficult to compare like with like, because we're emerging from the pandemic period, but it wasn't just around income, which obviously will go down for the period if we're not charging, but on actual usage. But I recognise that in the short term there may not be a way of actually being able to sort of count the number of cars, for instance, that actually use our parking spaces. But that might be something we can consider for the future if we can make this a longer term proposal.
Perhaps I can ask my colleagues in the regen teams who've got the town centre managers to perhaps think of a way that we might be able to get feedback from the town centres.
Yeah, that'd be good.
I'm not quite sure how that will work out, but I will take that back. Maybe they could do a survey of the town centre businesses to see if they felt that it had made a difference or not. So I will take that back to my colleagues to see if we can do something around that.
Okay,
thanks very much.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, Councillor Paterson.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to say briefly, I wholeheartedly support this. As people come out of the pandemic and they may feel very wary about going long distances, and with all the advice throughout the pandemic that the best way to recover from this is for the money to stay local, I can't see that this can be anything other than a win-win. I know it's only for a month, but it is showing the residents of Neath Talbot that the council support that viewpoint. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Paterson. Councillor Hunt.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair. I agree with Councillor Paterson, and David has answered one of my questions because Councillor Llewellyn posed it in relationship to the Swansea scheme. I just want to ask if anything we can do for our town centres is obviously good. So this report is excellent news, irrespective of lengths of time or where we go with it. So I thank the initiative and the council for doing this. I think it's really important. David, one question to you, however, that has been asked by myself. There's a number of members and the workforce who pay yearly fees for parking, and their rates of parking fees then are based, obviously sometimes reduced because of they pay in a yearly fee. You mentioned Christmas. We regularly have Christmas free parking, and now this month is free parking. They were just wondering, is there a rebate? Is there, even if it's small, is there money that obviously if it's free, they shouldn't be paying for it then when they are? So there's going to be a number of people caught up in a bit of a bubble paying for parking when everybody else is not paying for it. And then the other question I was asked was, is there any places excluded from the scheme? And I'm not referring to the tourism of the Knoll Park or Margam Park, but is there any other council-run car parks that are not in the scheme, not for them to be caught out if they went in there and didn't get a ticket? So those are sort of the couple of questions I've been asked to ask you at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Hunt, and they're very good questions. In terms of the staff, the permit scheme, obviously we've got a number of permit holders. It would be a small amount in terms of annual monthly rebate. So what we've done in the past, where we've had initiatives, what we've proposed is that we add an extra month to that permit. So members of the public that will have committed to a season permit will get a month added to their permit, so there'll be no detriment to them financially. So I think we've covered that. Sorry, what was your the second question was, if you could remind me.
Are any other areas
All
of the
right.
council rec car
Yeah.
parks exempt where we
Sorry.
might have to pay in, just for them to be clear? Thank you.
Yeah, so it only applies to the town centre car parks. Obviously, you mentioned the Knoll, the country parks. It doesn't apply in the country parks of Abernagoedd, the Knoll or Margam, and it doesn't apply on the seafront down in Aberavon. Okay, so but all other car parks would benefit from this initiative.
Okay.
Just briefly then, Chair. So have we got council car parks in Neath because they're a town?
There are car parks in well, there's a number of car parks across the county that there are no charges incurred. So I think the one in Neath is not a pay and display car park. It's a small car park in the middle of the town centre. I think we've got some around, well, a number of them around the county that are small scale in that respect. So this will only apply to the pay and display car parks.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you, David.
Okay, thank you, David. I can't see any other hands up, any other questions. So if we go to page 21 and the recommendation, for members, consider the advice contained within this report and determine whether they wish to implement free car parking within town centre car parks throughout Neath Talbot for the month of August 21. So could I have a proposer and a seconder, please?
I move
the recommendation.
Anybody does.
A second. Everybody. Okay, it's great to see a unanimous support for the benefits that this is going to bring to the business of Neath Talbot Town Centre. So thank you for that. We commend this for immediate implementation to the Cabinet. Okay, thanks. Charlotte, can we call back in Councillor Rahman, please?
Yes, I'll call in Councillor Rahman and Councillor Hunt.
And Councillor Hunt, of course, yeah.
Just bear with me. I'll just let you know when they've joined. Just bear with me 2 seconds.
Thank you, Charlotte.
I can see Councillor Rahman has joined and Councillor Hunt.
As well, yeah.
So Councillor Rahman, are you happy to take over as chair?
Yes.
So just to let you know, we've just finished item 12. So if you want to continue, I know you wanted to scrutinise item 13, but that is in private, so we'll need to deal with that first.
Okay, yes, there is an urgent item in private, so we need to move to private. Access to meeting, to resolve, exclude the public for the following items pursuant to regulation 4(3) and (5) of statutory instrument 2001 number 2290 and the relevant exempt paragraph of part 4 of schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972. Can I please have a proposer and seconder to move into private?
Move, Chair.
Seconder, please. Thank you very much. At this point, I would like to thank any member of the public and press for joining us this afternoon. But could I please now ask that you leave the meeting? Could I also please ask that the recording of the meeting now stopped? Charlotte, can you confirm that?